At dawn, Rome breathed slowly. Mist clung to stone streets, and the Tiber moved like a tired animal, carrying whispers of yesterday. The city looked calm, almost gentle, yet beneath that stillness lived memories that refused to sleep. Marble columns stood like witnesses who had seen too much. Birds settled on rooftops without knowing how much pain those stones had absorbed over centuries. This was a city that taught the world law and order, but also taught it fear. In a quiet archive near the Forum, an old scribe named Marcus unrolled fragile parchment. His hands shook, not from age alone, but from memory. He had spent his life writing words that others spoke, orders that others obeyed, and punishments that others suffered. Rome called this justice. Marcus called it weight. Each line he read felt heavy, as if the ink itself remembered screams. The scroll spoke of 12 punishments. Not ordinary penalties, but rituals of pain designed to warn, to control, and to erase hope. They were once common knowledge, displayed in public squares, taught as lessons to children. Yet now they were fading, hidden away, whispered only in dark corners. Rome wanted to forget them. Marcus understood why. The first punishment described was meant for traitors. The condemned was sewn into a leather sack with animals, then thrown into water. The text did not describe screams, only procedure. Marcus paused, imagining the darkness inside that sack, the scratching claws, the panic. He wondered how many fathers, sons, and brothers vanished beneath the river this way. Rome never recorded their names, only their crimes. As the sun rose higher, Marcus continued reading. Another punishment spoke of slow burial. A person was placed in a narrow pit, just deep enough to trap, just wide enough to breathe. Earth was poured in gently, layer by layer. The law called it merciful because it was quiet. Marcus knew quiet could still be cruel. Silence often lasted longer than noise. Outside, citizens walked past the archive, buying bread, laughing, living. They did not know these words were being read again. Or perhaps they did know, deep down, and chose not to look. Rome survived by forgetting as much as it remembered. That was the city's great skill. Marcus reached a section describing fire. Not sudden flames, but controlled heat. Victims were bound near warming braziers, their skin slowly blistering. The goal was not death, but confession. The scroll noted that many confessed to crimes they never committed, simply to escape the waiting. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had once written such a confession, his hand steady while a man cried nearby. He stopped reading and closed his eyes. He told himself these punishments were history, no longer practiced. Yet the stones outside still knew. The air still held echoes. Rome had erased these acts from public memory, but not from itself. By midday, Marcus felt the weight of a decision. These scrolls were meant to be destroyed. Orders had been clear. But as he rolled the parchment closed, he felt something gentle but firm inside him. If these punishments vanished completely, so would the warning they carried. Forgetting would make repeating easier. He decided to read on, slowly, carefully, giving each word the time it deserved. If Rome had erased these punishments from history, Marcus would remember them, even if he remembered alone. In that quiet archive, surrounded by dust and light, the past stirred, ready to speak again. The afternoon light shifted as Marcus read deeper into the scroll. The punishments grew more detailed, more refined in their cruelty. One described exposure. The condemned was tied to a post and left under the open sky. Sun burned by day, cold cut by night, and animals circled with patience. The law claimed nature was the executioner, not Rome. Marcus thought that was a lie meant to ease guilty minds. Another punishment involved the loss of identity. The victim's name was removed from records, their face marked, their past erased. They were forced to live, unseen, unwanted. Marcus found this one especially heavy. Pain ended eventually, but being forgotten lasted forever. Rome understood that deeply. Control was strongest when it touched memory. As he read, Marcus remembered a young man he once saw punished this way. The man had stood in the square, eyes empty, while the crowd looked through him. No one spoke his name. Marcus had written the order himself. He wondered where that man ended up, or if he simply faded like smoke. The scroll continued with punishments for slaves, for soldiers, for women, for the poor. Each had its own method, carefully chosen to fit status and message. Rome believed punishment should teach. Marcus questioned what it truly taught. Fear, perhaps. Obedience. Silence. One section described public beating, counted lash by lash. Another spoke of crushing stones, slowly lowered until bones gave way. The language was calm, official, almost kind. Marcus realized that was the most frightening part. Cruelty wrapped in order felt acceptable. That was how it survived so long. As evening approached, the archive grew cooler. Shadows stretched across the floor like long fingers. Marcus felt tired, but also strangely awake. These punishments were not just acts of violence, they were stories Rome told itself about power. By erasing them, Rome tried to tell a new story, one of glory and greatness without cost. A gentle twist came to Marcus then, not sudden, but clear. These punishments were not erased because they were forgotten. They were erased because they were remembered too well. Too many families carried quiet grief. Too many stones held too much blood. Forgetting was not ignorance. It was protection. Marcus felt sympathy for the city he loved. Rome was not only cruel, it was afraid of its own reflection. Like a person who avoids a mirror after doing harm, Rome turned away from these memories. That did not make the harm disappear. He reached the 11th punishment, reserved for those who challenged authority publicly. They were displayed alive, restrained, until their bodies failed. Crowds gathered. Some watched with fascination, others with horror. Children were brought to learn obedience. Marcus swallowed hard. He had been one of those children once, standing beside his father, not fully understanding why his stomach hurt. The final punishment remained unread. Marcus hesitated. Outside, the city quieted as night settled. Lamps flickered on. He took a slow breath and unrolled the last section, knowing that once read, it could not be unread. The 12th punishment was simple in description, yet heavy in meaning. It was reserved for those Rome feared most, not for their crimes, but for their ideas. The condemned was isolated completely, placed in a small cell without light or sound. No visitors, no marks, no record of time. Death came eventually, but the true punishment was the waiting. Rome believed breaking the mind was cleaner than breaking the body. Marcus sat very still. He imagined that darkness, the slow loss of self, the way thoughts would echo until they faded. He realized Rome had feared voices that could not be silenced by pain alone. That fear had shaped this punishment. Control again, always control. As he rolled the scroll closed, Marcus felt tears rise, unexpected and quiet. He was not crying only for the victims, but for Rome itself. A city capable of such beauty had also created such darkness. The two were bound together, like light and shadow at dusk. He considered his task again. Destroy the scrolls. Erase the words. Allow history to smooth its edges. That was what Rome wanted. But Marcus had spent his life writing for others. This time, he wanted to choose. He did not plan rebellion or grand speeches. His act would be gentle. He would make copies, small and careful, and hide them. Not to shock, not to accuse, but to remember. Memory, he believed, could be quiet and still powerful. Over the following days, Marcus worked slowly. He copied the punishments in plain language, removing the cold tone of law. He added pauses, spaces where breath could rest. He did not add screams or gore. He trusted the truth did not need decoration. Each word was written with care, as if laying stones for a path someone might one day walk. He hid the copies in different places, among philosophy texts, under floor stones, inside walls. He did not know who would find them, or when. Perhaps no one. That was acceptable. The act itself mattered. As he worked, Marcus felt lighter. The weight did not vanish, but it settled. He was no longer carrying it alone. The past was placed gently back into the world, not as spectacle, but as warning. One evening, as he left the archive, Marcus paused in the forum. The stones glowed softly under lamplight. People passed, unaware. He realized that Rome was not only buildings and laws. It was choices, repeated every day. Remembering was one such choice. He walked home slowly, feeling the city breathe around him. The punishments remained erased from official history, but not from human memory. That, Marcus hoped, would be enough to soften the future, even slightly. Years passed. Marcus grew older, and Rome changed in small ways. New leaders rose, old ones fell. The city remained loud, proud, and restless. Yet beneath that noise, something subtle shifted. People began to speak differently about justice. Not openly, not boldly, but with more care. A young student once approached Marcus, holding a worn page. He did not say where he found it. He did not need to. His eyes held questions, not anger. Marcus felt a quiet warmth spread through him. The memory had survived, gently, just as he hoped. The student asked why such punishments existed. Marcus answered slowly, choosing simple words. He spoke of fear, of power, of forgetting. He also spoke of responsibility. Rome's past, he said, was not a chain, but a teacher, if listened to honestly. As Marcus's life drew toward its end, he returned often to the river. He watched it flow, carrying reflections of the city. Water remembered too, in its own way. He thought of those lost within it, and he wished them peace. On his final evening, Marcus felt no regret. He had not changed Rome, not truly. But he had nudged memory back into the light. Sometimes that was enough. The 12 punishments remained cruel, but they no longer hid completely in shadow. Rome continued, as all cities do, built on layers of choices. Some layers were dark, others bright. Remembering both was the only honest way forward. Marcus closed his eyes, breathing in the night air, calm and steady. The story of the erased punishments did not end with him. It moved quietly, passed hand to hand, mind to mind. Not as horror, but as understanding. Pain remembered with care lost some of its power to repeat itself. And so, in a city known for conquest and law, a gentler lesson endured. That even the cruelest history, when faced calmly and truthfully, could guide hearts toward something better.